originally, before you started Patreon and became like a tech CEO, you were a creator yourself and like sort of scratched your own itch by creating Patreon. So I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about like who you were before you became sort of a tech in the tech world.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've been a professional creator for the last, since 2007. I have a band called Pomplamoose, and we put out weekly videos. I have another band called Scary Pockets, and we put out weekly videos. And about 7 years ago now, I went all in on a music video that I ended up draining my savings account to produce. It was over 10 grand. I maxed out 2 credit cards. I built a replica of Millennium Falcon cockpit. I got a 3D printed hexapod robot and an animatronic head that was singing the lyrics to the song. I went all out on this video, like crazy. And I knew I'd put it out. It'd reach about a million people, get about 1 million views. That's what my videos were getting at the time. And I knew I'd log in the next day and, get an ad revenue payment of $150 for that. And I thought, like, can I swear?
Yes. Yeah,
Fuck
totally.
this. That fucking sucks. Like, I can't stomach the idea of putting out another video that reaches 1 million people and gets me a $150 paycheck. And that's when I kind of drew out the idea for Patreon on 14 pieces of printer paper. And it was just like, what if my fans just paid me $1 a month or $5 a month, like any other membership organization in the world, New York Public Radio or WBEZ in Chicago or SF MoMA or whoever it is. That whole idea for a membership just felt like we should just that should be available for any creator. That's how it kind of came to be.
So were you your own first customer?
Yeah, there were 3 of us that launched on Patreon. It was me and my girlfriend and our roommate. Those are the first 3 creators on Patreon.
And did you have like a reward for Patreon, or did you start out with like giving them something back for like certain tiers?
Oh yeah. Like I had I remember. So I made so funny. God, thinking back, we were so busy getting the site off the ground. I was so busy like finishing this video that I didn't really set up my price points and benefits for my patrons until like the night before I launched. And then like I was like, oh fuck, what am I actually gonna like do here? And I think I don't remember exactly what my levels were. It was like $1, $5, $10, and I think just for the heck of it, I was like, it'd be crazy. I'll put up $100 tier just because it's probably good to test things. And like it sold out, and people, it was for like one-on-one Skype sessions. And I was surprised. The average pledge was $7 from a patron. I thought it was going to be maybe $1 or something like that. But people wanted to jump in. They liked the videos. They wanted to step up and support.
Wow, that's incredible. And so maybe to give a little background on people who don't know exactly what Patreon is, like, so I guess it started as a platform mainly for like, it sounds like musicians and YouTubers to basically set up this page, get monthly contributions, and give their fans access to different sort of contents and stuff. But I feel like the vision for it is like so much bigger than that. And I've seen so many different like types of organizations use Patreon. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about the product you're building is because I'm like all this like local newspapers or like just little websites, like almost any business I could think of should have a Patreon page in a way. And I feel like it has the ability to like expand so far beyond what it like started as.
Thanks. I mean, the idea is very simple at its core. It's a recurring payment from a fan to a creator in exchange for extra stuff, behind the scenes photos, an extra podcast once a month, early access to the thing that comes out, an extra thing that comes out, whatever it is. The creators who are using that system really well. I mean, we've got folks who are now making, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on the platform, and they're hiring 50, 60, 70 employees. They're leasing office space. They're scaling media companies, and they're doing the whole thing with consumer payments, with recurring membership, which is something that, and this is the thing that kind of still pisses me off a little bit, but like you can't do that on ad revenue. Like it's not enough. Like you need millions of views or listens or whatever to kind of translate to the sorts of ad dollars that just like 2,000 or 3,000 patrons, recurring members could bring you. And I just feel like the web needs a better engine room at its hub to kind of figure out the system around converting attention into dollars, right? Like right now, the ad system basically makes the web free, and it uses your attention, your focus, and it converts that into a paycheck for the people who make all the content on the web. That comes with all kinds of trade-offs and is not a good system. I'm not saying we should get rid of it completely. It's just right now it's the only engine room for the entire web, and that feels totally broken. Like people should be, people want to pay, first of all, and when people do pay, the creators take home way more money, and it's a much better system of financing their creative operations. So yeah, when we're thinking about Patreon and the future, what we're thinking about is, gosh, no one's really building for creators right now. Like if you look at what people are, who's the customer? Who's paying? Advertisers. Advertisers are paying. They're the customer. Like that's who all these tech companies are building for. They're building products for advertisers. That sucks.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to be building products for creators. And I think that's why, what you're saying around Patreon's like, vision and future, we want to build products for creative people to scale their companies and like live their dreams. And I think that's kind of the difference is like, who's the customer? Who are you actually building for?
Yeah. And the way we actually got started on Patreon is like I'd been doing the channel for maybe like a year and a half. And someone actually named Jason was like, hey, like you need to get on Patreon. I'll give you $20 a month. And I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. Like, and we weren't really making any money at all at the time. So I was like, wow, this is a huge deal. And so we started from there and like now have like a little newsletter we send out every week, and you can be like a producer to get your name in the credits.
That's awesome.
It's been totally transformative. And I'm curious, like out of all the stories you've seen, what's like a outside the box, like something you would have never thought like would be on Patreon that sort of like surprised you, like a creator story?
I'll give you one from like 20 minutes ago. I was hanging out with this creator, and they do like role-playing games, like live podcasts where they like show them doing live tabletop role-playing games. And they put up a Patreon page and they were like, maybe we'll get like $1,000. Like, honestly, we're just going to do this anyway, but it'd be nice to get paid for it. So they put up a Patreon page. And I think within a couple months, they were doing like many thousands of dollars per month. And then it got to the place where it was like tens of thousands of dollars per month, like tens of thousands of dollars per month. And then they rented a studio, and then they rented a bigger studio. And then they quit their jobs. And then they like created new shows. So instead of just having one show, they have now 5 shows. So it's like a network of shows. Some of them are exclusive to patrons. Some of them are free. They launched a live streaming show. Now they added touring. So now they're touring around doing all this. Then they hired a Broadway set designer to build them a set, and then they added video, so it wasn't just a podcast, but they're filming this whole thing happening live. And then it was like many tens of thousands of dollars. I actually don't know if it's public, so I don't want to say it, but it was like tens and tens of thousands of dollars, and they're absolutely crushing from hanging out with their friends playing role-playing games. It's just the coolest freaking story in the world. And what we see is these creators are able to take that passion and that thing that they're making and reaching people with, and by investing in it and caring about it and caring about their community and setting up this recurring payment system, they're able to really take it to the next level.
Yeah, and it's so inspiring because it's like I feel like the internet has enabled like this explosion. You able to like these super small niches, like they're able to connect with people, and then you're able to like give them a way to sort of monetize that connection, actually do it in a way that was never possible. And I was researching a little into Patreon, and I think you guys have paid something like $1 billion to creators. So I don't know if you could update us on that number, but I just think that's so incredible because that's like $1 billion like directly into like the starving artists who like need it the most and are going to put the highest ROI into like doing art that I guess they previously would have never been able to do. Maybe they would have had like some boring job they hated because it wasn't possible. So I just think it's so like that when I read that billion number, I was like, wow, I know like how far our money goes. And I know like how far these artists hustle with it. I'm like, that has had a huge impact on so many people's lives. Like not even just the creators, but the people that they're creating for.
Yeah, we passed $1 billion last year in total dollars that creators have earned on the platform, from now over 4 million patrons who have,
Wow.
who are recurring, who have subscription pledges to those creators. And I think last year it was over 500 million of that came from, payments just last year. So creators are continuing to like earn more and more on the platform. In fact, like in a creator's first 12 months on average, they double their incomes, and in the first 24 months they triple their incomes. Like, creators are just really good at making stuff that reaches the world and growing their membership and finding new fans. And honestly, like, we are at a pivotal moment in history, I think, for creative people. I literally think this is the best time ever in the history of all humans to be a creative person. For the first time, you don't have to be cool enough to get into one of 3 pipelines to the world. You can say something and people are there listening. That is, like, I know we're all used to the internet at this point, but sometimes I just like to stop and think about how freaking awesome that is, that we literally have those connections in place. I think the final step here in like total creative freedom is just figuring out the economic engine of it, which is Patreon's mission, right? We want to get creators paid. And a lot of the web has been built and is figuring out, distribution. How do we get stuff out there? How do we put art on the web? Patreon is approaching that problem from a different angle. We're looking at, okay, now that there's art on the web, how do we ensure that creative people like participate in the economic upside of that and get paid what they're worth, kind of, instead of the minimum amount that tech companies can get away with. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we're approaching the problem. Is like, okay, all the distribution is there. Phase 2 is like, let's make sure the monetization is there. And then it's just, I think for creators, there's no going back after that. It's full creative freedom, full creative control, autonomy. You don't have to sign to somebody in a suit who's telling you what your art should look like. You can kind of do it yourself.